This video will be part one of a series where we look at all different types of corners and talk about the age-old question of what line you might select in those corners. And importantly, we give you tools you can use at any track or back road to maximize what that corner has to offer. In part one of this series, we're going to cover a critical evaluation tool that we don't hear many other coaches or schools talking about. It'll have a huge influence on your line selection. After we talk about this tool, we'll focus on a single type of corner, and as a bonus at the end, we'll offer a riding tip that will help you in every corner you go through. Let's get started. Hi, this is Eric Wood, and welcome to GasOnBikeUp. This channel is dedicated to bringing the tools of the best riders in the world to track day riders, street riders, and racers alike. If while watching this video, there's a question you've got or a topic you'd like us to cover, please leave it in the comment section below, and we'll seek out the best experts and the best information we can get to help you make yourself a better rider. In over 3 decades of racing, a lot of things have changed, but one thing that's remained the same is riders have a similar question almost everywhere they go. What's the right line for the corner that I'm in? Racetracks, and your favorite back road for that matter, have all types of different features. Some corners are fast, some are slow, some corners are long, some are very short. Some corners follow a long straightaway, others lead to a long straightaway. Some corners are increasing radius, other corners are decreasing radius. Some corners have bumps in the middle, some have different camber. There's an infinite number of variables. So on top of the racetrack itself, then we throw in the variables of how different motorcycles treat different corners. Big bikes, 1000cc superbikes, compared to say a 400cc Twins Cup bike, are going to approach some corners the same and some corners very differently. So where do we start? There are 3 basic ways to approach a corner. Now, not every corner fits into a neat little box, and in fact, at my home track, I would go so far as to say the majority of the corners don't fit in a neat little box. However, if you take a complex corner, you can often break it into 2 sections and make a lot of sense of it. So let's look at those 3 basic types of corners. On the fundamental level, the 3 basic ways to approach a corner are with a roll speed focus, a drive focus, or an entrance focus. The key thing to remember when we're choosing our line is not necessarily where it puts us on the racetrack, but what a line really does is it changes how we allocate our grip, what forces we can put through the tires, and what we are creating the greatest margin of safety for. It's not a coincidence that the fastest line through a corner will also happen to be the safest line. So it doesn't matter if you're a racer trying to break lap records, or if you're a track day or street rider who's out trying to ride as fast as they can while maintaining a margin of safety, the strategy will be the same. There's no such thing as a street line and a race line when it comes to the racetrack. We use the roll speed corner as our baseline. That type of corner is a simple philosophy where we are simply trying to fit the largest radius that we can on a given corner. It's a geometry problem, not a strategy problem. This roll speed corner becomes our basis for comparison for all the other corner types, because what we're trying to do in that corner is to simply maximize radius and maximize roll speed. In doing so, we also are looking to minimize our lean angle, and that's how we end up maximizing the roll speed. In a roll speed focused corner, the apex and the slowest point of the corner are typically at about the same spot, and that is in the center of the corner. When we compare that to a drive focused corner, the approach is very different. This is the classic textbook corner. Drive focused corners have a wider entry. We typically give up a little bit of speed because somewhere before the apex, we decidedly tighten our line and change our direction. And the key to that is we changing our direction. We get the bike pointed more up track, and that allows us to pick the motorcycle up earlier. We are allocating grip to the rear tire by taking away lean angle, and as a result, our line on the way out of the corner has a later apex and a much straighter shot than in the baseline roll speed focused example. The entrance focused corner is the inverse of that. We are focused on our braking and to push our braking and that force as deep in the corner as we can. We are allocating more grip to the front tire, so as a result, we're coming much more straight up and down with a straight approach that has an earlier apex. In fact, our braking in a pure entrance focused corner goes through and past the apex. And our slowest point in the corner is after the apex. Now, in all three of these examples, the slowest point in the corner represents the spot where we let go of the brakes and we transition back to the throttle. It is our throttle back on point. A key in all three of these lines is that we don't apply throttle until we have the speed and direction we want. In fact, we have direction. We can apply throttle and take away lean angle in a constant fashion without giving it up. In an entrance-focused corner, the drive doesn't matter. So with those three types of corners in mind, what matters most? Well, if we're on the racetrack, it's how to get through that corner in the shortest amount of time possible. How do we carry the fastest average speed through that corner? If we're on the street or a track day, it's how do we carry the most speed and give ourselves the largest margin of error? The strategies, fortunately, will be the same. If you look at the three strategies, the roll speed corner focuses on roll speed. Choosing either the entry or exit focus line reduces your roll speed. You can see in both of those instances, the radius of the corner tightens up significantly compared to that constant maximum arc that is in the roll speed corner. In fact, it is a feature of a roll speed focused corner that the radius is constant and large. Again, when you look at the drive focused corner, you can see the radius tightens up significantly prior to the apex. And in doing so, that requires you to slow down. Conversely, in the entrance focused corner, the radius tightens up after the apex, again causing you to slow down. Now here's a key point to keep in mind when you're trying to decide which strategy to take. The faster you're going, the slower you accelerate. If you use your own experience and you're going 30 miles an hour, roll the bike wide open, you get to 40 almost instantly. Doesn't matter if you're on a little bike or a big bike. However, if you're going 130 miles an hour, you roll the bike to wide open. On many bikes, it takes a long time, 5-6 seconds to go from 130 to 140. In fact, if you're on a 400, the only way it will go 140 miles an hour is if you throw it out of an airplane. Some bikes simply never get there. The time is infinite. So, why is this important? The lesson is, if you don't have time to make up for the speed you sacrificed by taking either an entrance-focused or a drive-focused line, then those two strategies will not serve you well. In fact, the major reason we would take either an entrance-focused or a drive-focused line is if we needed more grip. In other words, if we were not able to use the horsepower of our motorcycle to its fullest potential, then we would alter our line to be able to do this. And this is most often done with riders who set up a little wider and square off corners so they can get a better drive. The main reason to set up wide for a corner is to get a better drive. We sacrifice speed and time on the entrance to make it up on the way out. So there are times this works to our advantage and times that it does not. Because the roll speed focused line has the largest radius, it will also have the least amount of lean angle for the same speed. So before we get into breaking down what would make you select a corner for roll speed, drive, or entrance focus, let's talk about a couple of common mistakes riders make if they were in a corner that should be focusing on roll speed. Mistake number one, they bonsai on the brakes. And we've all seen this. Riders get overly aggressive, try to make a bunch of extra time on the way in the corner. The problem with this strategy is your duration of advantage. Usually braking zones only last a couple of seconds. 1/1000, 2/1000, oh, you're done. Straightaways, on the other hand, can last 5, 8, 10 or more seconds. So if you gain 5 miles an hour on the way in on the brakes, you gain that 5 miles an hour for 2 seconds. However, if that 5 miles an hour on the brakes costs you 5 miles an hour on your drive on the way out, that reduced mile an hour that you start that straightaway at puts you at a disadvantage for 5, 8, or 10 seconds. The math doesn't add up. Those riders that come in hard on the brakes and bonsai by you on the way in will often simply be passed on the way out, as the rider who got passed will square up, drive underneath them, get a 3, 4, or 5 mile an hour head start, and leave them down the next straightaway. Those riders will gain 2 or 3 bike lengths on the way in and lose 20 on the way out. On the other hand, there's another strategy, which is not often viewed as a mistake, but if you're looking at it from a lap time standpoint, it will show up. And that is, if you are in a roll speed focused corner and you square the corner off. In other words, you swing out wider. Instead of carrying that maximum radius, you stay wide longer. You sharpen up and have your slowest point of the corner happen before the apex and drive out. If that is a roll speed focused corner, you might give up 4 or 5 miles an hour as you scrub that speed off. And if the following straightaway is not long enough, then you will never have the time to reclaim that lost mile an hour. The only time that strategy works is when you need the extra grip, where you cannot get on the gas the way you want to because your bike will spin the tire. This introduces our concept called the threshold of traction speed. The threshold of traction speed is a term we came up with at the Penguin School years ago to describe the speed at which your motorcycle, absent of irresponsible bar input, and what I mean by that is you can make a bike spin the tire almost any time you want if you do something bad enough with the handlebars. If you're accelerating hard and you lean in and counter steer a whole bunch, you'll put a ton of extra side load in your tire. You will consume a bunch of unnecessary grip that should be driving you forward, and that will cause the wheel to spin. So this theory is assuming that you are not doing those terrible things with the handlebars, and we hope you're not. The threshold of traction speed is defined as the speed that your motorcycle at full lean and full throttle doesn't have a risk of spinning a tire anymore. What comes to play? Horsepower, of course. The faster your motorcycle, the higher your threshold of traction speed will be. Let's say, for example, that a 400, once above 50 miles an hour, won't spin the tire at any lean angle at any throttle position. However, on a 600, that speed might be 75 miles an hour. And on a 1000 like this, that speed might be over 100 miles an hour. So how the threshold of traction speed plays into our strategy is, if the minimum speed in a corner, in other words, if the slowest mile an hour you attain in a given corner is above your threshold of traction speed, then you should take a roll speed focused line. You should take the largest possible radius you can through that given corner and not square it off. Now we start to see why certain motorcycles take different lines through the same corner. When we look at threshold of traction, we understand why a 60 mile an hour corner might be taken one way on a small bike like a 400 and another way on a 600 or 1000. The small bikes that can't spin the tire absent bad input in a 60 mile an hour corner will take a roll speed focused line. They'll take the largest possible radius that they can. This gives them lean angle the whole way through the corner because it is a constant radius. However, if you're on a 600 or 1000, those bikes can still spin the tire at 60 miles an hour in full lean. So those bikes will give up a little bit of speed on the way in, and they'll come out with less lean angle so they can use all the horsepower they paid for. This threshold of traction speed rule is the most important rule when deciding what your strategy should be through any corner. The threshold of traction speed rule of using a roll speed focused line in any corner that is a higher speed, faster than your threshold of traction speed, overrules all other analysis when it comes to figuring out what to do in a corner. The only exceptions are odd cases where racetracks have strange camber combinations or bumps that affect grip. But if your track does not have one of those odd features that has an adverse effect on grip, then the threshold of traction speed rule becomes your first factor when considering what line to take through the corner. In future videos, we'll talk about how this threshold of traction speed affects other types of corners as well. So are there other types of corners that can be roll speed focused corners that are below your traction threshold speed? The answer is yes. After we consider the speed of the corner, the next factor we look at is how much time do we spend on the brakes compared to how much time do we spend on the gas. We'll always tend to shift our focus where we spend more time with that control. A corner that has a long braking zone followed by a very short or non-existent drive will tend to be entrance focused. A corner that has a short or medium braking section followed by a long straightaway will tend to be drive focused. We'll get more into those in subsequent videos. The other case, which is much more common, where a corner becomes a roll speed focused corner, is a corner where there's not a lot of braking or acceleration, kind of a connection corner. A really good example of this type of corner is when you have a right, left, right combination. That middle section in that sequence, the left in the right, left, right, is typically one that doesn't have a lot of brakes, doesn't have a lot of gas, so we will take a roll speed focused line. The only difference in those left, right, left chicane type situations is that contrary to the 90-degree corner that we showed in our example, when we use all the racetrack on the entrance and exit and go all the way to the inside of the apex, in a left, right, left combination, those extremes, those starting points for our entrance and our exit will typically be the midpoint between the left, right, lefts. So your maximum radius will go from the center of the track down to all the way on the inside of the apex to the center of the track on the exit. So let's look a little bit at the anatomy of a roll speed focused corner when it comes to the inputs on your motorcycle. First, the braking. Braking in a roll speed focused corner, any heavy braking tends to happen while you're straight up and down. Once you're in the roll speed focused corner, once you've got your lean angle changed, you tend to be very light on the brakes. In fact, we trail brake all the way to the apex, but trail braking is not necessarily for killing speed. Trail braking is more often just for chassis control. Our hard braking tends to happen early in the corner when we're straight up and down. As we enter the corner and we reduce lean angle, there's a decided release in the brake pressure. If there is a 100% brake to maybe a 10 or 15% brake, and then we trail, often with one finger, all the way to the apex. And that trail braking will last often 2, 3, 4 times as long as your main braking zone did. And again, it's just using the front brake with one finger, a couple pounds here, a couple pounds there to steer and direct the motorcycle into the corner. A critically important part of a roll speed corner is the bar input, or the actual turning force you give the motorcycle. That happens at the beginning of the corner. Your major bar input, when you're actually counter steering and turning the motorcycle, should happen while the bike is changing lean angle only. But in a roll speed focused corner, we enter straight up and down, boom, we get on the edge of the tire, and then we hang there for a long time. While we are in that constant radius section of the roll speed corner, we are very, very light on the handlebars. And all your bar input happens in the motion of going from straight up and down to leaned over. It's the where you're actually using your arms and muscling the bike over. And that happens only in the top third. If you were going to lean over from, say, 0 to 45 degrees, it'd be from 0 to 15 degrees that you'd really give that bike some muscle and get it going. And then as you went over on the edge of the tire, from 15 to 45, your input would continuously soften. And as you got on the edge of the tire, all I would have would be thumb and forefinger effort. In fact, I use my fingers and wrists, so when I'm guiding the bike, it's just my inside hand, and I'm just kind of like doing a little bit of touch on the bike, but I'm not using my shoulders, my triceps, my arms. I'm totally relaxed. I can be steering the bike and almost be like flapping my arms loose on the motorcycle while I'm supporting the weight with my legs. Your entire focus for the middle of the corner is to keep the bike as upright as you possibly can, so that you can have the least amount of lean angle and carry the highest possible roll speed through the middle of the corner. We really focus on using our legs for support, and there'll be a link to the video in the end that will go into that concept in a lot more depth. The entire point of the roll speed focused corner is to maximize the cornering force. That's the force when you're driving around the corner in your car. In other words, you're in the driver's seat and you take a hard left and you go in too fast. It's that force that tries to throw you into the passenger seat. We're trying to maximize that and make that the entire force. And both tires should be sustaining a ton of that cornering force. How do we do that? Simply by minimizing the turning force back and forth on the bars, minimizing the braking force to happen at the beginning of the corner, and the acceleration force, the wide open acceleration that happens late. Everything is focused on carrying roll speed by reducing the other loads in the motorcycle. So in summary, roll speed focused corners are ones that have a higher minimum speed than our threshold of traction speed, or don't have a lot of braking force or acceleration force, more connection corners. We get all of our turning done as early as possible. Our bar input and our braking force happens early in the corner while we are changing lean angle, and then through the course of the corner itself, we're going for maximum possible roll speed with largest possible radius and minimum inputs to the motorcycle. Now for the bonus section. In a roll speed focused corner, we spend a long time at full lean. The slowest point of the corner is typically where full lean happens. It's right in the center of the corner in a roll speed focused corner. It's early on a drive focus corner and it's late on an entrance focus corner. The question we get is, how far should I get off the bike? How far do I lean off? Now, from a physics standpoint, the further you get off the motorcycle, the less the motorcycle itself has to lean. What physics cares about is the combination of the center of gravity of motorcycle and rider. So if the rider can get down into the inside, then the motorcycle can be stood up at the same radius. And so you can carry more speed with less risk. So does that mean we should just get off the bike as much as possible? Well, not necessarily. While it is true that the further you get off the bike, the less lean angle you have to carry, there's an important factor that goes into how far you get off, and that is control. The further I get off the motorcycle, the more I lean, the straighter and straighter my arm gets. In fact, the minute this arm reaches the full extent of its travel, the minute this arm locks out, if something happens to the bike and it moves, I lose control. Because one of the most important concepts to keep in mind when it comes to having control is that the motorcycle has to be able to move independently of you. If you want to stay in control, your head, your torso, your body needs to stay still while your bike goes crazy underneath you if something happens. Staying in the center of the bike, yes, this will not help the bike turn at all. Okay, in fact, you're putting more force to the suspension, chances are you're carrying weight in the seat, all those kinds of wrong things. But now you get off the motorcycle. How far should you get off? In fact, where should your body position be mid-corner? A good rule of thumb is to be roughly centered on the motorcycle while your head is over the inside fork tube. So you can move down, move up, move left, move right, and in short, go through the full range of steering travel while your head and torso stay in place. If I'm way off here like that, I can't go through here without moving my body. The minute my body gets pulled along, I start to throw force into the chassis that it does not need. In fact, if the bike's sliding or twitching or doing anything, and whether you do this on purpose, where you're sliding the bike yourself, or someone in front of you pitches off a chain, drops oil, water, whatever it is, you hit some unexpected substance, you need the ability to have the best chance to save that motorcycle. What's the move? What do you do most often if you lose the front end? What's the move that happens? You need to save a front end slide, you release all of your energy from the motorcycle. In fact, all the bar input you're using to guide it through the corner, that gets released for a minute, and you'll steer into the corner a little bit and you will stand the motorcycle up. And my question is, if you're already here, if you're already low and far and disconnected from the motorcycle, and you lose the front end, where do you go? The answer is, most often you go down. So while it may be very slightly faster to get yourself from a good, hey, I'm helping the motorcycle position, to all the way off, this last little bit, this sacrifice of control, will result in more broken motorcycles, more broken body parts, and a reduction in confidence. Another key note is that your head is where your balance is. So you want your head to be in a spot where you are connected to the motorcycle and have a good feel for what's going on. If you get your head way out here, disconnected from the bike, you tend to lose a sense of what's going on. And what happens if you lose a sense is, instead of being able to react instantly, you have a little delay. And that little delay can make the difference between saving or not saving a crash. So again, get off as far as you can and remain in complete control, where I still have the ability to go through the full range of travel or have the bike move around underneath me, or just a general rule of thumb that the bike can move independently of you. You'll notice that MotoGP riders that separate themselves from the bike a lot, when that happens, is late in the corner, not in the middle of the corner at full lean. They're not dragging their heads and dragging their helmets as they're tipping it in and approaching the slowest point in the corner. When they get way separated, when they actually do let the bike come up next to them, is later in the corner, after they've taken away lean angle and hence taken away risk. So that's part one of our series of breaking down corner types and focusing on the roll speed type corner. For more content like this, please subscribe. It means a lot to us because we want to get this content out to as many riders as we possibly can. The more riders there are that understand the fundamentals of our sport, the more our sport will grow. In addition to subscribing, don't forget to hit the little notification bell, which will let you know when we release the second and third parts of this series. And if you want to see a video that goes over some body position tips that will help you prepare to go through a roll speed focused corner, click right there. Until next time, ride fast, ride safe.